podcast app. You'll see there's a discourse happening. Is this book a masterpiece or problematic? One's a lifelong diehard fan, the other's a first-time reader. Both are really smart and funny and attractive. Sweet feather, sweet feather. Talking twins and hierarchy. Sweet feather, sweet feather. Relentless focus on their bodies. Sweet feather, sweet feather. What do they mean by all American? Sweet feather, sweet feather. No sex, just titillation.
Madonna mia.
What's wrong?
My computer just updated or something, and so I just spent the last 5 minutes trying to get in. And part is gonna think I'm late, part is gonna think I don't respect this, part is gonna be so angry with me. And my therapist is trying to get me to work through that's just a projection, you don't know how she feels. But I just felt like I was letting you down, and for that I'm really sorry.
Robert, I absolutely would never be bothered by that, and I'm sorry you went through that stress, and in the future, if it happens again, just know, I will never think badly of you for being late.
Okay.
You know what I was going to say? That even if I did get mad at you for being late, to quote Elizabeth from this book, someone who's that inflexible isn't someone you should be in a relationship with, Enid.
Exactly.
Right? Someone that inflexible isn't worth your time. So even if I would have got mad, that just gives you information about who I am.
True.
When I tell you
Tell
I
me.
have come today with facts, figures, intertextual multimedia references, Mama, I came prepared. And I have some revelations, sweetie. Okay?
Well,
Get
first
ready.
off, thank you for doing the Lord's work, because I'm going to be honest.
No.
And I love it.
No.
There's not much to talk about with this one.
You'd think.
I would think, and I'd be wrong.
Don't worry.
Okay.
I actually gave it 2 passes. I did have the time to go ahead and give it 2 passes and then do some reading. Not avoiding anything.
That must be nice.
You know what? I'm taking some time off, okay?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think you're putting some time in.
I'd love to start off with a sort of passage that I'd love to read for you out of context.
I couldn't be more ready.
So this is from the perspective, I think, of a graduate student who wrote an essay, and they're in a Shakespeare class or something, okay? There's nothing surprising about my professor's lecture on Shakespeare until, out of the blue, she started talking about ghostwriting. Ghosts are all over these plays, she pointed out. Shakespeare supposedly played the part of the ghost in Hamlet, but it didn't stop there. Shakespeare's plays are filled with ghost writers, legible erasures that forecast debates about their authorship. How much of these plays did Shakespeare write himself? What was co-written or added by an actor or compositor or later editor? Anxieties about this, my professor argued, are linked to the ghosts and ghostwriters that haunt the tragedies. Figures connected in turn to other in-between states like madness, uncertainty, and illegibility. Present absences. These ghostly traces belong, as she saw it, to the world of the uncanny, making audiences question the very concept of the real, end quote. Now,
we love the canny.
I'm going to just super quickly remind us of our conversation about doubles and doubling last week, but what I would like to tell you is that is an essay called The Ghost Writes Back by Amy Boesky.
Okay.
Who for many years went by the alias Kate William. A Harvard literature graduate student studying at Oxford, studying someone called John Donne, someone called Foucault. I've
heard of these people.
By day.
By day, by night.
This bitch was giving us this. Okay? Now.
Where is she now?
I think she was a professor at Boston College.
Oh,
Her dissertation was about utopias in the 17th century. She
Sure, of
has,
course.
Sweet Valley High, she thinks of as a sort of Reagan era suburban utopia that was a sort of antidote, escape hatch of the more rigorous world of scholarship and academia, but it also, in retrospect, helped her theorize utopias.
Okay.
Okay. I do want to, before we get into it, show you the cover since you don't have the cover. I know last time you
I
said.
love it.
I just want you to look at how pretty they are and how fun it is that one of them's on the phone. That's obviously Jessica.
That is Jessica. Just like you can see her coy. There's secrets behind those eyes, Jessica.
And Elizabeth, of course, is being like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? What's going on?
And of course, we know it's Jessica because of also her hairstyle versus Elizabeth.
Yeah. And I wish, show us the mole. You know what I mean? Like, we need to see that beauty mark. Confirm for us for once and for all which is which on the cover.
You know what? I don't
Hashtag.
think it's ever pictured.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be weird if it were, I guess. Except, I mean, they wear a lot of sleeveless gowns.
Formals. They call them formals. Yeah. All right, get us started here.
Okay, so
overall,
I am not exaggerating when I say I was gagging for this book. The way that they left me on that last cliffhanger, which I will just quickly remind you.
Wait, I'm like getting flutters in my body right now because when you first were like, I don't have that much, I was gonna be like, wait, he hated it?
No, wait, just hang out with me. Just play with me in this space, Pardo.
Okay, it's hard for me to not be stressed out of like, it's just, I feel like I want you to like it so much. And I decided every time for the past couple of days I'm thinking, I'm gonna tell him he's not allowed to give up until he reads, at least until he finishes Dear Sister. Because for me, like, if you finish Dear Sister and you don't like it, then that's your prerogative. But until then, you gotta stay. Anyway.
What number is Dear Sister?
7.
Oh.
It's like nothing. Yeah.
Okay. The sharp ring of the doorbell announced Enid's arrival. Elizabeth had invited her friend to come over after dinner and spend the night. Elizabeth opened the door. There stood her friend, tears streaming down her face. Enid, what's wrong? Liz, I don't know what to do. Something terrible has happened. I can't even tell you. It's so awful. But I know Ronnie's going to hate me and I could just die. I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything. What is the dark mystery in Enid's past? And how does Jessica use it to her own advantage? Find out in Sweet Valley High number 2, Secrets. When I tell you I was on the edge of my freaking seat for this,
okay,
all I wanted to know was, what are the secrets? How is Jessica going to use it?
Oh, no.
I'm
okay.
so keyed up. I'm so ready to go.
Yeah.
I think you'll be helpful here because in some ways, I think my difficulties are actually in the realm of reading and comprehension, which is where you thrive. You like thrive in that world of just kind of repeating back what happens in the text. I don't have analytical problems. I just was like, wait, what is going on here? So basically,
excuse me, what? Yeah. Please remember when I dropped that freaking major analysis bomb last week. That
was amazing. Okay. About the sexual assault. I'll never forget. Her needing to be heard about
that
sexual
was
assault. I'll never
worth 10 million. You being, oh, there's a tension between this and this. Is that analysis?
I mean, A, that is analysis. Pointing out tension, that is analysis. Okay. But B,
let's keep it all the way real. Okay.
I still have chills when I think about your analysis of that disclosure.
I'm having chills right now.
Of course you are. That could be menopause. Hard to say.
Rude.
Accurate. So I'm so excited to read this book. I'm like, what is the secret? Something's going on in Enid's past. I feel like, so for our listeners, the secret is that Enid went around with a bad guy, was doing some drugs. They hit a kid.
A lot of drugs.
Sure. A lot, according to Enid, whatever.
No, we actually do know, and I feel that there's multiple corroborations of this. But
yeah, you'll point me to it in the text, I'm sure. They hit a kid with the car. The kid is fine. End of secrets.
Okay, that's not a big secret for you. What would have been a big secret for you?
I wanted the kid to die.
Yeah, you wanted a dead kid.
I mean, I wanted a dead kid. I have to be, if I can't be honest with you, who can I be honest with? I wanted that kid to be dead.
Well, you know,
if that kid had been dead, that takes this book to an 11.
But let me ask you a question.
Please.
Here's the thing. The problem that presents for the writer is if it's that bad, how then does she recover from it? Because then what is Liz's response? Because Liz was like, well, it can't be, it's not, like Liz afterwards is like, well, it's not that hideous a secret. Like George will get over it, but it's like, okay, it's still pretty bad though, right? So it's like, so if she actually did kill the kid, would Liz just be like, well, everyone makes mistakes, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do they make it okay? It's not okay.
I think there is a way to make it okay. I mean, I don't think she wasn't driving. I don't think whether the kid lives or dies matters to me in terms of the scope of how big a secret it is.
That's wild because when I was reading it and like not remembering the details, I was like, holy shit, they're not gonna actually have the kid die, right? And then like I was like, oh my god, thank God he's alive.
So we have very different views on that. I was praying for his death. And I guess also the larger secret is that she continues to correspond with George as he works to get back on the straight and narrow.
I think it's also like Sweet Valley is set up as a world that is like very much like the mainstream kids, like they'll they'll have a like the like adventurous ones will have a little alcohol here and there when they're being feisty, but like
Don't go to Kelly's, baby.
but no, but they don't go to Kelly's, they don't go to bars, and they never touch drugs. None of them. Like none of the good kids do, right? So it's like when you have a history of so like apparently like in this world there is a I think quite a big stigma attached to this how much drinking and drugs and whatever she did and then the fact of the hitting someone, but the other piece of it of course is that Ronnie is a snob,
A monster.
and so he's a snob, right? Like he's cares
a monster.
Yeah, he's disgusting, but like specifically in the way that he is judgmental about your past, right? So it's the combination of like them being all kind of goody two shoes at the school pretty much in terms of drugs. So it's like seems like a big deal. Plus the kid could have died. Plus it's like he's especially judgmental. And Enid hasn't become like self-assured enough to realize that like she doesn't need his approval. But you know what? When you were reading the cliffhanger, what it actually made me think was Jessica's always positioned as the so dramatic one, but Enid is like actually kind of a drama queen, and like the way she came in there with her tear stain this and that, and then in this one she drops and breaks a measuring cup. It's like, get it together. Like what? She's also like in hysterics all the time and like being crazy. So not to stigmatize mental illness, but I'm actually mentally ill. So
everyone is. You're not special.
But so let's just keep an eye on Enid in terms of like, is she actually getting away with being dramatic and no one's calling her on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very confused about the central character of Enid because what the cliffhanger really reminded me of, or brought to mind again, was this idea that like Jessica is using this to her advantage. And so we as readers are to believe that Jessica tells Ronnie what's going on with Enid's secret so that Ronnie and Enid break up so that Enid doesn't win the dance queen. I know there's a better name for it. I'm sorry. Festival dance.
I think it's fall dance queen.
Okay, so that Enid doesn't win fall dance queen over Jessica. My questions are numerous, including, is the ballot just the two of them?
The fact that Enid is even running for this raises a lot of questions because it's like, whatever. Honestly, there's no story I can tell myself to make that really plausible, except that Enid just like decided to do that and Liz was like, go for it, and it's just like, you go, girl. Like, I don't know, okay? But maybe they were like, Jessica's all gonna win anyway, haha, I'm entering myself as a joke. Maybe that's the story we tell ourselves, okay? I don't know.
Maybe.
But it doesn't make sense. But what I want to say is, you know, last week we were talking about this thing of like how annoying or how much of a loser is actually Enid. And and I think that what we didn't talk about enough or like emphasize enough, and what it feels like is like extra emphasized in this one, is that like the nature of Jessica's like despising her has to do with jealousy over Liz, right? And like Liz's affections. And so like Enid represents the loss of Liz, and it also represents rejection, because I feel like the key moment of insight in this book, which is total almost throwaway, it's like barely even acknowledged, but the fact that Jessica first wanted to be friends with Enid and brought her home herself, and Enid didn't like her and preferred Liz instead. Okay?
Yeah.
It's totally like dropped in like nothing, But then Jessica actually makes the connection, and I have it written down what page it is, between Bruce and Enid and how both of them have rejected her. It's page 30. Do you see the paragraph that says, yeah, that's because she's turning herself into some kind of Liz clone?
Yeah, that's because she's turning into some kind of Liz clone. It's positively revolting.
Okay, pause on the word clone. Who should be the Liz clone?
Oh my gosh, Rich, way to move out of the realm of reporting the text and into the realm of analysis.
Okay.
Rebecca, welcome.
And what does Stephen, I think it was mentioned in the first book, call them as a joke? The clones. He calls Jessica.
Does that happen?
I don't know if it's in the first book, but it is true.
Okay.
And so it's very much clearly established that this is about her taking Liz's time and them not spending so much time together, okay? And then, so if she'd rather be with Enid than me, why should it bother me? I have tons more friends. After all, I was the one who brought Enid home in the first place. Jessica didn't like to admit it, but it was true. Enid had preferred Elizabeth's company to her own. To Jessica, that was simply unforgivable. She burst into tears. Darn Enid Rollins. Darn Bruce Patman. She didn't need either of them. Everyone knew that she could get practically anyone to follow her simply by lifting her finger. Was it her fault that Enid and Bruce were blind to her charms? This is where she's been rejected. She's been rejected not only by Bruce, by Elizabeth for Enid, and by Enid for Elizabeth, is how she feels it, right? So that she actually feels rejected by Enid. That's why she's always making fun of her. It's classic like bully syndrome. And I think this is like the subtext that I want you to push for, is that a lot of these stories, there's underlying vulnerability to Jessica that is not, that I think sometimes we have to pull it out because it really is there.
That's really interesting to me because that in some ways gives a little more, makes it more intelligible why Jessica feels the need to ruin Enid at the dance and ruin Enid, because there's no way that Enid was going to win Fall Dance Queen. Like, we don't live in that world, Jessica. Like, there's simply no chance. And so the idea that she would do all of this, I was seeing the idea that she would do all of this just to submarine Enid so that she could be Fall Dance Queen, I thought was a thinness of the writing, but it's actually a richness of the writing. And the richness is in that subtext, which you've just so thoughtfully omitted. I love that.
Exactly. And I think this is what it is rather than show vulnerability, she deflects things onto things about reputation or appearance. So her whole thing of, oh, I could never be seen. What if someone thinks it's me with Enid? Like, it's so ridiculous. And she knows that it is. And she would rather be seen as ridiculous in that way than say, Liz, do you actually like spending time with her more than me? You know what I mean? Can I give another example of that with Jessica?
Yes. And can I just say, of course she would prefer to spend time with Enid over Jessica. Jessica's a monster.
Sometimes.
Often.
Another moment that I felt like it could be read as shallow Jess or could be read as what we're talking about is, say 10 paragraphs after that one, after Jessica in a rage flies upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a paragraph that starts, "It wasn't fair," Jessica fumed.
Absolutely.
Okay, Elizabeth was going to dance with Todd. Even Enid had a date with Ronnie, who was so blinded by love. That is head of the dance committee, he'll probably swing a million votes her way. Okay, this line made me pause. Ignoring the fact that she could have had her pick from any one of half a dozen boys if she wanted, Jessica refused to be consoled. The line "Jessica refused to be consoled," initially, I feel like at surface level is right as sort of a haha. It's like she's being sort of immature and sort of emotionally immature and stubborn by sort of like intentionally ignoring the reality of like she has all these guys available to her and focusing only what she can't have or something like that, right? But I actually think the refusing to be consoled, it's like she goes after unavailable men, and people that are sort of ignoring her, she'll sort of push and push, as we've seen. It happened with Todd. It happens with Ronnie. It happens with Bruce and 10 million other guys. And there's something, I do think there's something around like, again, I think it's like Jessica, she is always sort of asking to be looked at, but what she really wants is to be seen. And I actually think there's something very, very deep in her child that like hasn't been seen, possibly by Ned.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with her sort of complex around her sort of value as far as Elizabeth, because like Ned and Steven are so much more like Elizabeth, and Alice pretty much is too. Like Jessica really is more the
Yeah, no one else is a monster, is what you're trying to say.
but no one else is. They're more serious people. Like they're serious. Like they take work very seriously. They're academic. She's interested in partying, having fun, whether she's a monster or not. Regardless of
Okay.
that, like just what she's like and her personality and like how this type of thing she's interested in are like pop culture and stuff like that, right? And they're more not. I think there's a wound there that is
I
sort
think
of.
there are a couple of wounds there. I think that's
Yeah.
a very fine thing to say. I just like, it's hard to be sympathetic sometimes, even when there's a wound there.
I know.
I mean, she's truly trying to blow up this girl's life. This is like Melrose Place level shit.
Yeah, but not to be a Jessica's advocate, but like
I know you are.
Enid, I really didn't think I would be like this, but like Enid at the end is like, I wish I could thank whoever did that because I'm actually way better off. So it turns out Jessica actually did everyone a favor.
So this actually really resonates with me.
I don't actually mean that. I think that's bullshit. Like I would never say
Okay.
that justifies an unethical
Yeah.
act. No, of course not.
Okay. Because I can just, you don't know this about me, but one of the many community service organizations that I belong to, thank you. I'm part of a panel and I share my story about being queer with different school groups and different trainings and different whatevers. And so part of the, like, it's like you tell your coming out story, you tell all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. And what's
Yeah, I
interesting
think we
about
called it once your How to Be Gay panel.
That's correct. I believe that is accurate. And I mean, why wouldn't it be? And when I tell the story, I talk about how I came out to my then girlfriend and I said, like, please don't tell anybody. I don't want anyone to know. I'm 16 at this point, by the way. And then she tells everybody. And she like told she told her parents, she told all of our friends, she told like the checkout person at the supermarket, she told like the entire world. And at the time it was like really, truly tragic and awful. And now as a 38-year-old person, I can be like, well, it was truly tragic and awful. And it actually was like pretty easy for me because I didn't actually have to tell people. And as an adult, I can now be like, well, she was probably hurt and she felt vulnerable and like this is how she was lashing out. And
like
so
that in no means like makes it an okay thing for someone to do.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I am with this. It's like, maybe at the end it wraps up, but it does not make it okay. And the fact that you are so strongly, so strong, you just feel so comfortable.
But Robert, sorry,
arguing.
I just want to say,
on behalf of this monstrous behavior. So comfortable you are. So comfortable.
I didn't really mean that last thing. I was more being facetious, but I take it back. I do not mean that it's okay because it worked out in the end. And I don't think it's okay what she did. It's gross.
Good. That's the right answer.
I just think that is the very sort of reading comprehension level story, and the more interesting story is sort of what may lie beneath.
Also, I think it's important to
note we haven't even talked about the student-teacher quote-unquote love affair. Sorry,
I can't deal with it. The moment that Enid knows that Ronnie knows, and Enid's like, well, it must have been Liz because no one else could ever, like, no one else would know. And it's just like, can we please give 17-year-old girls a little more credit?
And that was the use your brain. That was this week's hashtag use your brain moment. And it hurt me, and I knew it would hurt you, and it hurt me even more because of that.
Yeah.
No, it was outrageous.
Oh, I wanted to talk just about the way that we talk about bodies. Jessica was, as usual, too gorgeous for words, but I'll still use some words to try. Her sun-colored hair shimmered about tan shoulders, left bare by this. It's just like the way they talk about bodies and women's bodies and men's bodies.
Yes, it's very much a problem. It's it's a big problem. It's bad.
The way that she talks about Bruce, she'd been in love with Bruce Packman since her freshman year. He was the most desirable guy in school. Besides being movie star handsome, he was fabulously rich and drove a terrific black Porsche.
That's what Jessica likes, okay? Rich, good car, hot, and cool at school, and good at sports. That's what she likes. And Bruce is bad at sports, but he's good at tennis.
We don't even get the good at sports in that moment.
Because she doesn't really care about good at sports.
Yeah. It's just handsome, rich, and Porsche. And Porsche is like a subset of rich.
Yeah, but Robert, like, Jessica, consider the arc of a series and the need for character development. It's like the same way when you start any series, you pretty much know the main character is gonna be kind of schlubby, kind of like fucking around at their job, kind of like dating people and doing some fucked up things, so that by season 4 they can have like kind of gone to therapy, done some work, got a better outfit, and kind of be with a more appropriate partner and like themselves better and be kinder to other people.
Okay.
So like by book
I'm
2,
ready for the glow up.
if Jessica's already not shallow by book 2, where do we go from there? She's Elizabeth.
A reasonable point. Filing this under, does anyone who writes these books understand high school at all? If she won, it would mean reigning at Bruce's side for many of the school-related activities during the semester. What? but what? No, but what?
It just
Have
means
these
like
people been to a high school?
they have like ceremonial. They have certain ceremonial duties. Okay, the fall queen and king have certain ceremonial duties that are very important. That they must be seen if there's a ribbon cutting at the new school football field opening, or if they open the, maybe they're gonna have a big swim meet and they need to ring a bell or something. I don't know what.
Yeah, it just seems like these people don't understand.
Or maybe they have to MC the junior prom, or maybe they have to introduce the next fall. Like, I don't know, there's certain ceremonial duties and expectations are required. And the queen must be running at the king's side.
That is true.
Okay.
Queen recognized queen.
I had to look up what bennies are. Did you know that?
Where?
In George's letter, when he was like, it reminded me of when we were so high, my GTO and all those friggin' bennies. As if he would write that in a letter, by the way. He's like, So, I'm doing good. I'm glad I got my life together. But remember when we were, like, fucked up out of our mind? Yeah, so I didn't know what bennies was. I Googled it. Did you?
Well, we traditionally call them benzos in my culture, right?
Okay, what exactly is benzos?
Aren't benzos bennies?
No, but, like, what are benzos?
They're like...
like, describe them. Like, what do they do to you?
They get fucked up?
Like, are they amphetamines? Bennies is amphetamines.
Which kind? I wonder, are they the same thing? Should we be Googling this?
Yeah. I'm gonna look up our benzos.
Our bennies.
I put our bonzos. Our benzos amphetamines.
Are benzos bonzos? Are benzos bennies?
No, because it says danger of mixing amphetamines and benzos. No, Robert, they're different. So actually, we have a disagreement.
I'm doing my own Googling. I don't trust you even for a second.
We both have different ideas of what bennies are, so I'm glad I asked. Okay? I Googled what
bennies are a tablet of benzodrine.
It's an amphetamine, not a benzo.
It's a wonder drug for multiple health problems? That is until it started killing people? Oh, so that's amphetamines. What are benzos?
See, I feel like benzos is something more like normal.
No, benzos are benzodiazepines.
Which is what?
Those are depressant drugs.
Yeah, like that's, but like, who takes that? You know what?
People who have anxiety disorders.
Okay. Well, you know what? This isn't actually a friggin' medicine podcast.
No, but I guess what it is that bennies are uppers and benzos are downers.
Yeah, because remember George was like, give me a Diet Coke, it's the only friggin' upper I take these days or something.
I loved that line. So Enid has this moment of revelation. She tells Elizabeth the story. I'm on chapter 1. My paragraph starts, the whole time she'd been telling her story, Enid was staring down at the kitchen counter, unable to meet Elizabeth's gaze. Okay, so just to set the stage, she's emotionally raw. She's never told anyone this. She's so upset.
She just broke a measuring cup, for God's sake.
Now, she looked up into a pair of blue-green eyes shining with sympathy. Enid had always thought Elizabeth was pretty, though in a less flashy way than her identical twin sister Jessica. But it was a sparkle that went beyond her all-American good looks, the perfect white teeth, the spun sunshine hair.
Yeah, Enid is horny for Elizabeth. Always has been, okay?
I mean, I'm fine with that. It strains credulity that in Enid's most emotional moment, she's crying, she's overwhelmed. She looks up and she's like, wow, that Elizabeth really is pretty. Like, what, Enid? I'm sorry, what? This makes no sense. This is not how people behave.
Is it? I don't know. I'm thinking about Enid's like low self-esteem and just like her sort of. I feel like she has some probably very deep ambivalences towards Elizabeth that aren't anywhere near the surface. But anyway.
It's wild to me that if I were sharing with you a secret I had never told anyone that I felt painted me in a terribly unflattering light and that was like life ruining. If I told you and then through my tears I look up at you, I'm like, Parda really is beautiful. Not
like
flashy like her twin sister.
No, I feel like that would happen though. Like that's what happens in life.
What?
You notice things. You think about one thing. You think about another thing.
No.
You know, I don't know.
No. Do we have a moment for Elizabeth's attempt at comedy? You say Elizabeth never makes you laugh?
Oh no, I knew you were going to bring this up, and I was going to, but I was like,
Wait, is it the same thing?
It absolutely is.
Easy for you to say you don't have any skeletons in your closet?
If I did, Jessica would borrow them. Okay, there was another one.
Line.
No, I fucking hated it, especially because she like smiles to herself, and I'm like, I'm like, read the room, Liz. Like, read the room. Like, Enid is literally trying to tell you she's stressed, and you're being like, haha, Jessica borrows things out of my closet. You're so annoying.
I think she's reading the room, and she's like, wow, this girl's obsessed with me and in love with me, and maybe I should, Oh, no, it's not Diet Coke. He says, in George's letter, he says, your last letter was definitely an upper for me. The only kind I go for these days.
Yeah.
I kind of love that.
Yeah. I know that you like to go chronologically, and there is by this point a sort of rumor circulating about the quote-unquote affair between Ken and Ms. Dalton.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to observe that it's discussed more as an affair rather than
sexual assault, rape, a real problem. I had a moment where they're talking about the rumors about the Miss Dalton spreading. In small towns, as her father said, rumors had a tendency to multiply like mice in a cornfield. In many ways, Sweet Valley High was the biggest mousetrap of all. That's not what a mousetrap is.
You're right. That wouldn't make them multiply.
No, that would make them die. It's the least mousetrappy of places. The other thing that I was wondering about, and we should probably look at just the publication history just to set this straight for once and for all, how recently are these published? Because there is so much. They just recap the entire plot of book 1 in chapter 1 of book 2. And it's like, I know, bitch, I just read it.
I think it was maybe once a month they were publishing them at some point.
I just find it so... We just read this book. You do not need to recap it for me.
I don't find it that way because in my context, I would read them at random when I was growing up. I never read them in order. So I was introduced to them at random, so it helped give me just enough context.
That makes sense. Okay, I can take that. The whole thing about Ken and Miss Dalton is so gross. And the way that Jessica's like, oh, teachers can be so dense. She doesn't even know that he's interested. And it's like, what is she supposed to do?
Yeah, it was so weird. Yeah, she thinks of it like a normal dynamic. And you'll see that she thinks about it that way with older men and her too. She's out there, Jessica in later books, not a spoiler, is out there trying to date men. And she's 16. Me. And she
that doesn't surprise me.
She doesn't see any problem with it.
Is Lila? Is Lila a problem? Lila shot her a look of disdain. They're the worst kinds, don't you see? The ones who don't seem the type. I mean, look at the way she keeps Ken Matthews dangling, for instance. It's positively disgusting. That's a gross thing to say.
She's one of the top 2 or 3 grossest people at Sweet Valley High in terms of just worst people. Right? The most, classist, racist, misogynistic. And yeah, I would say Ronnie and Bruce are up there too.
Okay. Can I ask for, and this may just be at the level of plot summary, which I know is where you thrive. At the very beginning of chapter 3, well, if it isn't little Bo Peep, drawled Bruce as Jessica fell in step beside him. He raked her over with a flick of his heavy-lidded blue eyes.
I did want to point
out... any sheep lately? What does that mean?
I did want to point out that heavy-lidded eyes is a thing in this series that I noticed, in multiple books. It's the bad boys, they always, their lids are heavy. I'm like, why are they stoned? Like, I don't think they're supposed to be stoned. But it's just
I don't think it's supposed to be stoned.
bad boys always have heavy lidded eyes. I feel like Rick Andover had that too. I feel like it's just nonsense. Like their pickup lines, like they don't make sense. Like Heaven Wears Mars, like Bo
I
Peep,
love that one.
like it's like Heaven Wears Mars, Bo Peep, where's your sheep? Like they just say words. You know?
It's just so confusing.
Yeah, but she literally explained he could recite the Gettysburg Address in Pig Latin and have all the girls. It's like she does not care about what he's saying. Speaking of boundaries, which you were talking about last time in terms of the family,
yeah,
I felt some major boundaries were crossed in terms of student-teacher relations, and I'm not talking about Ken and Ms. Dalton. I'm talking about Enid showing
Mr.
up.
Collins.
No, I'm talking about Enid showing up at Ms. Dalton's home.
Ah, I thought that was very weird, but Mr. Collins will always be my number one boundary cross.
But you have to point to what is the problematic behavior that he's doing. Like, is it that he's giving them advice about personal matters?
I'll get there. We're not there yet.
Because, like, you know what I'm saying? But Enid showing up at Ms. Dalton's home.
Unreal. Unbelievable. How did she know her address? What's going on?
It's absolutely cuckoo.
It's inappropriate.
It really bothered me.
So if I could direct you to chapter 4, I've got a little theory. So first off, we're describing Todd. Todd is, I believe, the only person who has been described as anything beyond just good looking in a positive way.
Yeah, he's lean. They always say he's lean.
Right, no, that was still
lean Todd.
Right.
Lean Todd on the staircase.
Right.
Lean Todd sitting on the chair.
Right. That would still be related to how he looks, though.
Yeah, lean.
Yeah.
He looks lean.
So this is beyond.
And they're always talking about his coffee-colored eyes.
Right. Again, he's the first character beyond how he looks, and he is tall and lean, of course.
Okay, all right.
Deep coffee-colored eyes you could drown in, of course. But the best thing about him was that he couldn't give a darn whether he was popular or not.
Mm-hmm.
He was friendly with whomever he wanted to be friendly with, and he avoided people considered snobs, no matter how popular they might be. In that way, he and Elizabeth were alike, and she knew that she could tell him anything and that was bothering her, and he would have understood. So he is the first character who is more than just attractive, and therefore good. He is nice. He seems great. I love him. I'm a big Todd head. And I'll tell you why I love Todd so much.
Oh, I'd love to know. Is it because he told Liz that his favorite thing about her is that she smiles even when she's upset?
Well, I think that
she's
might
like,
be
yeah,
his
I'm crying through the pain. Ha ha ha.
I think that may be his favorite thing about her. Because he's not interested in women. He's gay. Todd's a gay. Join me. Play with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very open to this talk. I'll build. Talk. Go.
Did you notice he didn't hold her hand during the movie? Todd noted. Seemed kind of funny since he's usually all over her. She nodded. Poor Enid. She looked really upset. I just hope Ronnie's not on one of his jealousy trips again. Remember the time he got mad at her for talking to that guy at Guido's? All she was trying to do was to make sure he didn't put anchovies on her pizza. It's crazy, Todd said, shaking his head. If you love someone, you should trust him.
Okay, so we're reading this as a Freudian slip. Yeah, or her. Yeah. Or her. Yeah, and we're reading it as a Freud. So, okay, I love that.
Tell me the world. Tell me. But because it doesn't make semantic sense in the course of any of this, because we're all talking about boys trusting their girlfriends. There's no lack of trust that is going female to male or girl to boy or whatever language you want to use about that.
But then
he's a gay.
But wait, then it does make sense if he says him.
No, it doesn't.
No, I'm saying it really could go working through it.
No, it couldn't. That's what I'm saying. Because we're not talking about girls trusting boys. We're talking about how boys need to trust their partners.
No, but
when Todd thinks of a partner, he thinks of a him.
Yes, and I 100% am hearing you. And I'm saying...
I don't feel like it. I don't feel heard.
I'm saying I believe that is the more natural and plausible explanation. I think you're right.
Yeah, he's gay. He's a gay.
And I want to suggest another possible reading of it where he is.
I'm open to it, which I'm not.
So I agree with you that like he wouldn't be thinking of his own boyfriend if he was straight. But if he's thinking about wanting to be trusted by the person he's in a relationship with, then he's saying that from Elizabeth's perspective, right? Like, if you're in a relationship with me, I would expect you to trust me.
Right.
So
right,
he's
right.
the him. You know what I mean? It's like,
I see what you're saying, but we're not talking about the whole context of this is the idea that this man does not trust his woman partner.
right.
There's no concerns about that trust going the other way.
But, and again, Robert, I'm going to ask you to go beyond the sort of explicit text. And,
Okay.
and are relationships about other couples ever really just about the other couple when we're talking between our own couple? And isn't it always already also about us as a couple?
Yes, it is certainly always already about us as the couple, and Todd is
He would have
picturing-
still said her.
He would have still said her.
You know what? I like it, and I
Because
say,
he's the he.
you know what, Robert? I'm on board with this. That also was confusing for me. I'm very open to this, and I would love for us to continue this thread and look for other supporting evidence for this, which there probably is lots of.
I'm going.
Wait,
So we're. Sorry.
one thing that made me really hate Todd, which I do hate him in general, just so you know.
Homophobia, sure. One thing was homophobia.
No, not homophobia. It's called being literally a sentient brick and being
Which, to be fair, is my type.
be the dumbest person on this planet called Earth. And when my note that I wrote down about it, I said page, and I know you don't do pages, but I said for myself, page 85, Todd's Halloween story, and then I did emoji with the teeth. Okay, and let me just read you this passage. Elizabeth is talking to Todd about something, about relationship problems, okay?
And Todd's like, oh, I know, when I date men.
Listen, Elizabeth, I wish it were that easy. I wish I didn't feel so guilty about having a good time when I know Enid will be sitting at home feeling miserable. I mean, I know it's not my fault or anything, but I feel bad anyway. I know what you mean, Todd said. It's like the time when I was a little kid and my brother got sick on Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
And he had to stay in bed while I went trick-or-treating. Somehow it just wasn't the same. Part of me felt like I should have stayed home too. He grinned. It worked out for him though, because I ended up giving him most of my candy. And then Elizabeth goes, I'm glad you understand, Todd. Is he... What's a way to say this? Is there some sort of developmental delay that we should be taking into account with Todd? And Robert, you're an education expert.
I am an education expert. He has shown no symptoms of any kind of developmental delay.
Are you sure? That Halloween story?
Wait, that story totally fits. He's just saying, I too find it hard to derive enjoyment when other people are having a hard time. That's it.
Wow. Okay, you to Todd is me to Jessica, and now I get how it feels. You are a Todd stan, you're going to defend him. Okay, I get it. That's fine.
Wait, but why is it a bad story? Like, if you're going to bring this allegation against my new boyfriend.
No, because he's comparing, her friend being heartbroken about, betrayal and deceit and, lost love to his brother not getting Halloween candy.
Is this an American-Canadian difference? Did you not have, an understanding of how important Halloween candy is to the younger generations?
Okay, all right.
Is it? I'm being...
No, it is not.
Okay.
We have just as big a Halloween, even though we have to wear our winter coats on top of our costumes.
It doesn't seem like you have just as big a Halloween as I'm going to say. There are so many echoes between Ronnie from this book and I've already blacked out the other guy's name because
Rick Andover.
Rick Andover. I mean, the way that they act, it's eerily similar. This gross, the way that he is in the car with her.
There's a lot of similarities between this book and the last book. The plots are very, very similar. And they both end with Elizabeth kind of getting one over on Jessica at the end of the day.
Yep.
In some sort of public
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luckily, they go to a school that has nothing but public events at
Well.
which people can be embarrassed. Oh, I wondered about the class dynamics here. Ronnie's father owns a small all-night supermarket.
I was wondering about that too. I'm like, he's such a snob. Is his family actually rich, or is he snob and not rich?
Which is the worst. I mean, if you're going to be a snob, at least have the decency to be rich.
Remember when Elizabeth was like, Lila's such a snob because her family got all their money overnight.
I
I
know.
was like, Elizabeth, you sassy little.
And also, like, how do you know about new money? At 15 or 16, I did not know what new money was,
Hey.
or did not know.
She knows what Department of Education, Board of Education versus Fowler. She knows.
That was impressive. That was last book. Ronnie is so gross. What's the matter, Ronnie growled. I don't rate up there with old Georgie boy. You're not going to give me any of the same stuff you're giving him? Just this idea of, like, the ways in which sexuality is transmitted and handled in these texts is so chilling. And for me to be, like, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl and reading, like, oh, this is how we talk about, like, sex and sexuality would be so, so, so jarring.
It's so disturbing. The way that sex gets and like affection even gets mixed up with like aggression, hostility,
Yes.
disdain. These guys, like, they disdain them, and then they show them affection, and the girls are like confused and excited and scared, and then it like goes too far, and it keeps being this theme of, like, as you're going to see in the next one, if you agree to keep going on this, if you play with fire, you're going to get burned. Like, if you hang out with Rick Andover, it's like you're taking your chances, and then you're going to end up at Kelly's, and then you're going to make a big mistake. And if you like, and Ronnie, now she's being like punished by his like anger of betraying him by like him like trying to attack her.
Yeah, it's
disturbing.
very gross. It's very victim blamey. Also, what's interesting for me is what the last straw is for Enid. The moment that's too far for Enid is Ronnie saying, "Why should I believe you? You've been lying to me all along, acting like Miss Goody Two Shoes when the truth is you were hot and heavy with George and who knows who else." Finally, he had gone too far.
Right, like he doesn't care that she almost killed a kid.
No one cares about
He just cares that she was a slut.
And what's interesting is that her too far is this idea. He's accusing her of duplicity. He's accusing her of a mirror self, of presenting one face, one twin, if you will, to the world, when another twin lurks in the darkness.
Ghostly demarcations, as it were. Ghostly, absent presences.
Oh gosh, yes. It's also liminal and so rich.
Spectral.
It's so spectral.
Yeah, it's true. Like, if the supposed worst thing she did was almost kill the child, how come no one ever mentions it? It's just like...
Yeah, no one cares at all.
Yeah, it's really more about being a slut, which is going to be a theme that does come back.
Do we want to take a moment and let Jessica show us how real comedy is done?
Yeah. Yes, we do. We do.
Who was that? Jessica asked from behind her. It sounded like you were having some kind of argument. Enid, Elizabeth replied, her eyes welling with tears. It was Enid. Jessica made a face. What did she want? Wait a minute, don't tell me, let me guess. She couldn't walk from the living room into the kitchen without asking you your opinion about it first, right? Ding. Yeah, that was a good one. Can I ask, Jessica says so many things. And I can't tell at this point, I'm like still a novice in reading these texts. I can't tell the extent to which she is aware of what she is saying versus the extent to which she lives in delusion. So for example.
Yeah, let's do an example.
They're talking about, Elizabeth and Jessica are talking about Enid and the truth coming out about Enid's background. The very end, the tail end of chapter 5. So Elizabeth says, maybe we better wait. I don't think she's going to listen to anybody right now. Poor Enid. I can't believe Ronnie would do this to her.
Wait, sorry, I'm not... Oh, okay.
Over a few crummy letters from a boy she's not even dating. Don't you see, Jessica says? It's the principle of the thing. How could he ever trust her again, knowing how she'd covered up the truth? Honestly, Liz, I think it's better Ronnie did find out. Whoever told him about the letters was doing him a big favor. Now, I know, of course, we all know in the level of plot summary, of course, Jessica is the one who did tell. She's claiming to have done a big favor. She's really lashing out. Is she trying to win the queen's spot? Is she lashing out at the fact that she's threatened by her? Whatever. But this moment of how could he ever trust her again, knowing she'd covered up the truth? Which is on its face like a reasonable thing to say, and also is just like a truly ridiculous thing for Jessica, who has done nothing but cover up the truth, to say. And I just wonder with you, like, to what extent do we think this is real, fake, etc.?
Yeah. So I believe that she knows that that's bullshit.
Okay.
I think she's self-aware enough to understand that logic does not fly given what she like, right?
Okay.
But I think she also sort of believes the ends justify the means kind of thing, and so she's very much willing to tell any tale she needs to tell to get what she wants. And if she can justify herself to herself that the outcome she wants is the good thing also for that other person, then she'll do whatever those sneaky things, right? So she's okay with saying that bullshit that she knows is bullshit because she thinks she has some way of justifying herself. But can I tell you what
Wait,
quote?
okay. There's a central crux that you haven't really illuminated though.
What?
It's not the stuff about whoever told him about the letters is doing a big favor. It's the how could he ever trust her again, knowing how she'd covered up the truth. Does she realize that that's true, and in that case, no one should ever trust her, and like Elizabeth shouldn't even trust her, or does she not have that level of self-awareness?
She does have the self-awareness, but she's just not going there. Like I said, she really compartmentalizes. So it's not that she doesn't.
As we all do.
Like it's not. I don't think it's that she doesn't understand that. It's that she's choosing to. That's fine with her. And I want to draw your attention to a quote.
Draw.
Because I think that there are some moments where we really do know that Jessica understands what she's doing is wrong. And there was 2 moments like that in this book. The first was at the beginning, which I didn't write down the page, but it's like at the very beginning, Kara, it's like page 1 or 2, Kara's teasing her about falling and going in the pool, whatever. And Jessica's like, oh, if this wasn't your house, I'd kick you out or something like that. And then she's like, but deep down she knew she deserved it. So there we knew that she knew she deserved the cool thing. She knew she did wrong in book 1. Then, chapter 13.
Oh, wow, it's a big jump.
Yeah, so
I'm going to let you just read to me, because I can't jump that far.
All right. Elizabeth's threatening to tell everyone what she did to Enid. And says Jessica was really frightened now. Deep down, she knew what an awful thing it was she'd done.
So she knows that she's doing bad things. I get that. I just don't understand the extent to which she is aware that...
That what, Elizabeth shouldn't trust her?
Yeah, that no one should trust her based on the way that she behaves.
She doesn't think like that. She doesn't care. Like, her motto is I'll figure it out. Like, that's not how she... She's not interested in the realm of, like, should. It's not should. Okay. It's how can I get that? You know what I mean? It's like she's very much like id. You know? You know how we're talking about how she's like, in terms of time, she's a today person, not a tomorrow person.
That's true. She's an id.
So she's just satisfying impulses 24/7.
Whereas Elizabeth is a huge superego.
The hugest.
And as we know, that's very boring.
Well, let me ask you something.
Always.
Where do we find you at this moment with the wonderful world of Sweet Valley? Are you interested in continuing to playing with fire and even further along to Dear Sister?
I don't think this is not the right time to have this conversation. I'm only at chapter 6 in my notes, and there are 14 chapters.
Oh, you're saying there's more? Oh my God! Thank God.
You think we're done?
Oh my God, Robert! I'm so relieved. I keep having these scare moments where I think you're about to break up with Sweet Valley.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're kind of doing purpose. You're sort of leading me on the way Miss Dalton was with Ken.
That is, I am definitely a Mrs. Dalton. This is just this gets filed in the same category of like, does Jessica know what's going on? Jessica conceded, taking a ladylike sip of her wine. That certainly does seem devoted, but just remember, appearances can be deceiving. Is she aware of this? Does she know what she's doing? And then the other thing is she's like so brilliant that she's saying this to Ronnie. And the way that she weaves this web that Ronnie falls in, it is like, just like with the first book, it's like hard to be mad at her because she is operating at such a higher level than these fucking idiots that she is playing. It's like a game of Survivor where it's like she's Sandra and everybody else is just like,
they're out here playing checkers. They're out here playing checkers and Jessica's playing chess, okay? It's because she has the gall that no one else has, and that's what makes her such a good housewife, survivor player, whatever it is. She'd be a great reality star because she moves things along, because she will do the crazy shit that no one would believe you would do. So the fact that she would actually go to Ronnie and be like, and go to Enid and you know what I'm saying, and like try to be like, oh, don't be mad at her being, don't be mad at Elizabeth, and her being, oh, don't be mad at Enid, and maybe this or that. And then in the last book, when she went up to Todd and was like, you know what, it was actually me that did the bad thing. You know, it's like
Classic Survivor.
that's Machiavellian. She's so nimble with it. Like when someone throws something at her, she's able to think really quickly on her feet. So yeah.
I just love the way that she is able to tell the truth in these situations and not be believed, but not be believed because people think too highly of her. She really does play on other people's expectations of her in like the most brilliant way. And at some point, it's like you have to stop being mad at her because it's like, well, if you're a 12 trapped in the land of fours, yeah, of course you're gonna like fuck around with them for your merriment. Because like, what else is there? She's puckish in that way almost. In this conversation about Miss Dalton, which we haven't spent enough time in, there's this gross stuff where they talk about whether Ken Matthews is a kid or not.
Yeah. And then how Enid's like, I couldn't picture it. Miss Dalton, she's so refined with a jock. I'm like, that's the problem?
Yeah,
that's why this is strange?
I do love that Caroline goes, that's what makes it so perfect. It's so disgustingly tacky.
Tacky.
It's disgustingly tacky. I also love, this is Elizabeth's big solution. Has anyone bothered to ask Miss Dalton whether it's true or not? You dumb bitch.
I'm like,
come on.
I'm like, Elizabeth, like, this is not, yeah.
So then Miss Dalton comes in, there's graffiti written on the board. If you don't know what French kiss is, ask Ken Matthews. We never find out who did that, right? Jarring.
We don't know who yelled at her at the party either, the fall dance.
I love the way that Jessica consoles Enid after the breakup. I know how you feel, Jessica gushed sympathetically. Well, actually, I've never been dumped by anyone, but I can imagine what it's like. You must feel awful. I'm a Jessica stan now.
Yeah, and when Enid's like, oh, yeah, like we're total outcasts, and Jessica's like, well, you're not total outcasts or something.
Worst. Then we get into, oh God. Beginning of chapter 9. The next day, Elizabeth broke down and confided in Mr. Collins. Besides being the faculty advisor for the Oracle, Roger Collins had become sort of an unofficial Dear Abby to the kids who worked with him.
So
not okay.
Yeah, so is Miss Dalton, but also not okay. But yeah.
Of course, he resembled anyone but Abby. More like a taller Robert Redford, Elizabeth thought, with his crinkly blue eyes and ruggedly handsome features. Sometimes it was hard to keep her mind on what she was saying when she talked to him. I'm so torn by this, because she's allowed to be horny for him.
Yeah, like, all she's saying is he's handsome, she has a crush on him.
It just feels gross.
It's harmless.
And just the way that he, like, talks like he's, like, their friend / therapist is really gross. Like, what are your credentials here? Either to be a friend or a therapist, Mr. Collins. And then this gross interchange. Elizabeth looked at him, a slow smile flickering across her face.
Maybe we're gonna like this. Is this with the whip? When he talks about the whip? Oh.
Where's the whip? Oh, yes, sorry, yes. How did you get to be so smart, Mr. Collins?
She's like, Grandpa.
He shrugged. Remember, I've been around a few more years than you. Yes, Grandpa, she teased. Not that long, he laughed. I've got a way to go yet before they put me out to pasture. Besides, how would all of you goof-offs get along without me to crack the whip over you?
Thank God Olivia walked in right then, because I was worried where I was going to go.
It's just gross.
Yeah, disgusting.
Oh, I was interested in Elizabeth, like, is empathizing with Enid and Miss Dalton about how, like, they're outcasts and the conversation stops the second they walk into a room, whatever. People had treated her like that when Jessica had been picked up at an off-limits bar during a wild brawl and had let the police believe she was Elizabeth. The next day, everyone at school was smirking behind her back. Elizabeth would never forget what a miserable time that had been. It's like, okay, sure, but like this teacher's being incredibly accused of sexual assault. Like it does feel like just a scotch different. Oh God. So Enid goes to Miss Dalton's house.
And she's in her robe.
It's unclear why Miss Dalton is like, come in. She doesn't think it's weird, which it is weird.
No, and we're supposed to look at her as like, oh, isn't Miss Dalton nice? That like, even though she has her own struggles, she's like only in her house girl, she still lets her come in. It's like, no, this is totally inappropriate.
And she even knows it. She says, Enid, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I've been thinking quite seriously about resigning. I've spoken to Mr. Cooper about it, and no. Enid leaped to her feet in a blaze of indignation. You can't. You can't just quit. What about all that stuff you just told me? How can you expect me to hold my head up if you won't do the same? Miss Dalton was staring at her with a dazed expression. You don't understand, Enid. It's not the same thing. Why isn't it? We've both been accused of something we didn't do. What's the difference? What's the difference, Enid? Are you fucking kidding me?
You know what? But it worked, because then she shows up to that dance with her long skirt and her ruffled top and a rose tucked behind one ear and her head held high.
But what? I mean, so we are left with the idea that we're supposed to believe Enid is right, and that Miss Dalton being credibly accused of sexual assault and Enid being credibly accused of cheating on her high school boyfriend with another high school student.
It wasn't. Whoa.
It wasn't credible. Is it not credible? I'm using the word credible too loosely.
Miss Dalton? Absolutely not credible. Lila started that maliciously because she was pissed at her for dating her dad. Like, it fully was just based on the fact that people think Ken has a crush on her. That's it.
I mean, and she's tutoring him. But tutoring him in what?
But that's literally all it was based on, Robert. Like, seriously, there was no grounds for this. Like, I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but I don't believe there was any evidence for it. She was really unfairly maligned.
Deeply.
And Chrome Dome didn't launch any kind of investigation at the end, so...
I mean, I guess Ken has also not come out in any way.
Yeah, he's not spoken up. Well, he's homesick.
He's homesick.
He's homesick right now. So we'll see if he has anything to say about it in the next one.
The way that we talk about bodies. George shows up on the same night of the dance, coincidentally.
Yeah, and he's hot now.
A tower of tanned muscle, topped by gorgeous white smile and the sexiest eyes Enid had ever been hypnotized by.
It is sex. It's unapologetically sexy, and these kids are unapologetically horny. Okay.
He was dressed in a suit and tie that made him look even more irresistible. She stepped forward as if in a trance to take the hand he held out to her. So I do not mind that these kids are irresistibly horny. I love that they're horny. Don't be ashamed of your horniness.
But what did she say bad about his body?
I just want, for once, us to be able to be horny about someone who doesn't have, like, a stereotypical perfect body.
Yeah, that's not going to happen in this book series.
I just, like, can't we be horny about all sorts of different people?
No, not here. Not in the wonderful world of Sweet Valley. No, we can't. No, sir. Okay?
Ronnie's not my boyfriend. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure he ever was. Huh?
Again, she's dramatic. The same way she was so dramatic about the Ronnie stuff. And now she's like, it wasn't even ever my boyfriend, and now I'm obsessed and hypnotized by you. It's like...
I mean, I do understand why he's hypnotized by her, because let's listen to this boner jam. George wrapped his arms around her, drawing her into a gentle, tentative kiss. His lips were warm and sweet, sending waves of pleasure rippling up her backbone. She curled her hand around the base of his neck, holding him closer. Is she having an orgasm from kissing him? Is that what an orgasm is?
Well, here's the thing. In these books, they don't have sex. So in these books, they passionately kiss, and that's what they do. Elizabeth gets a shiver up her spine every time Todd touches her arm. So they just sort of put it all in there. I do feel that there needs to be some sort of follow-up comment or discussion. Like, if the kids are actually just left thinking that Miss Dalton and Ken were fucking and, like, this is the resolution to that, like, that's not really okay.
No, it is not. No, it is not.
So I feel that it would be appropriate to have some sort of...
school-wide debrief.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a newsletter.
Or like a town hall. You know, I think it would be good to sort of get something from Chrome Dome saying that, you know, you may have heard these rumors circulating. We looked into it and we found absolutely no evidence of misconduct. By the way, just so you remember, here is our conduct policies. We take them very seriously. Like, we're going to actually do another set of trainings, and we're going to have some discussion groups. And we have an anonymous thing if you have anything you want to raise.
And of course, just we already have all of the notices about Mr. Collins. We'll be investigating that next.
Yeah, and it turns out we're all okay with it, so he's fine. Because he's hot, and he looks like friggin' Robert Redford. He has strawberry blonde hair, and he likes to put it behind his ears sometimes.
Crinkly blue eyes. So, And every book that I've read so far, this is number 2, there is a moment where I'm like, oh wait, these are actually good. Like these present good models for us. And here it happens in chapter 12. I'm sorry. You know something, Enid said, I should really thank whoever did this to me. She really did me a favor in the end. Enid, Elizabeth admonished, there is a point at which you can be too forgiving. No, I really mean it. If I hadn't broken up with Ronnie, I never would have realized how narrow-minded he was. And I wouldn't be here with George either. Elizabeth hugged her best friend. Oh, Enid, I'm so happy for you. I hope he knows what a terrific girl he's getting. He'd better. I'm through with apologizing for myself. Whatever mistakes I made in the past are over and done with. I learned from them, and that's all that counts.
Yeah, I really loved that quote also, and also felt it was a really good message of you don't need to be punished forever, you know?
Here's an interesting moment where, like, we give Jessica all this credit for, like, Queen recognized Queen, Queen stays Queen, Queen slay, sway bitch slay. She's playing checkers, we're all playing chess.
The other.
Wait, what?
She's playing chess.
I think for some people, actually, checkers might be a more elevated game.
Okay.
I'd like to murder whoever started that rumor, Jessica muttered darkly, talking about the rumor that she's interested in Winston, which is how Winston ends up winning prom king or whatever, and so she's by his side rumor. Who could hate her enough to do such an awful thing? Suddenly, Jessica remembered about the funny way Elizabeth had been acting earlier that evening. She remembered Elizabeth saying that Winston could make some lucky girl a wonderful king. It had to be. Who else but her own twin would be jealous enough of her to want to stab her in the back? She'd always known Elizabeth was jealous, and why not? Jessica was 1,000 times more popular, she told herself.
Yeah, no, that's just a moment. That's just a moment of her going off the deep end and telling herself a tale. But it's that's what that is.
I mean, it's just so insane that her first thought isn't like, oh, I tried to ruin Elizabeth's best friend's life. Maybe this was payback. It's like, no, she's just jealous because I have so many friends.
Because that's where she goes. That's her narrative she likes to tell herself. It's about being popular. Everything's about reputation. Like, it's much easier for her to swallow than I did something wrong.
So that's the end of my notes. I'd like to leave us with the cliffhanger.
Hmm.
Just then, Bruce sailed past, nearly colliding with her as she stumbled backward in an attempt to escape Winston's murderous feet. He swept her with a long look that sent an electric shock tingling up her spine. Another small orgasm.
See?
Another small
It happens
orgasm.
a lot.
There was a hint of invitation in his smile, and more than a spark of interest in his sexy blue eyes. Some of her misery faded. Could it be? Can Jessica play Bruce Patman's game and win? Find out in Sweet Valley High 3, Playing with Fire. This is not a cliffhanger. Enid showing up in tears, that's a cliffhanger. Bruce looking at me, not a cliffhanger.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, with Enid, it's more, there was sort of a mystery to be solved.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Jessica, it's like she's almost, there's this like competitive antagonistic thing, like with the guys she's pursuing. It's like this really weird energy. Like, can she beat Bruce at his own game or whatever? It's like,
It's very erotic.
So, do you want to keep reading?
I think I've kept you in suspense long enough. Although I think, much like Secrets, the cliffhanger was not great. I will be continuing to read. I will be reading Playing with Fire.
Thanks for listening to Sweet Valley Hive, hosted by Robert Marks and Rebecca Pardo. For more, check out our Instagram at Sweet Valley Hive. Theme song by Yessie and artwork by Elliot Carroll.